The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Thursday and I apparently don't have a brain. So you're going to be patient with me today because I will tell you stories later about why I don't have a brain today. But my ability to concentrate today is like tweet, tweet. I will talk about all that. But in any case, with or without a brain, I'm going to be here with you for the next 2 hours and we've got a very exciting show for us. That might be why my brain is a little bit on hold at the moment. But in any case, we've got some really exciting things to talk about. And I always like to remind you at the start of the show that this entire show is meant to be interactive. We are only as good as the input that you guys give us. Now, for a couple of days, our live feature has been having some glitches. So if you experience some difficulties with that, I want to let you know it wasn't just you. And thank you for those of us who wrote in and told us that we were having a problem. So that's all fixed and you can be talking to us on the live feature again. I'm going to start out by talking about our holiday giveaway extravaganza. And every day from now until December 20th, next Friday, when we are live, we're going to be giving away something spectacular every hour. That's right. Every hour we're going to give something away. And here is how this works. You watch the live show and I'll make an announcement at the beginning of the hour of what it is exactly that we're going to be giving away. And sometimes I don't do it at the top of the hour. Sometimes I do it at the end of the hour. But at some time during the hour, I will tell you what the giveaway is that for that hour. And then also during that hour, Emily will show you a word or a phrase, something on the bottom of the screen. You need to write that down and write down whatever the giveaway is. Then you're going to write to us at this address here by 7 a.m. Pacific time the following morning. And in the body of your email, you're going to put the word or the phrase, but in the subject line, you're going to put the thing that you want to win, because sometimes we have more than one thing in a given hour. And they have to match. It has to be the right word or phrase in the body of the email and the right thing that we're giving away in the hour so that it makes sense to us, right? Of the correct responses, and I can tell you that a lot of people have been getting it wrong for whatever reason. There is an element, you got to think it through, right? From all the correct responses, one winner will be chosen for each item. We will email you and let you know that you've won. You'll have to send us back your mailing address so that we can pop that in the mail to you when if it's a mail thing. If it's not, we'll give you the email. But so that's how you win. Now, here's the other part of this, is that we have so much more to give away the end of this week and all of next week. And I want you all to share that you're participating in this on your Facebook. I'm going to ask, I'm going to plead, I'm going to beg. Please do that, because you know what? Then you cast a wider net and people will know. And if there's somebody out there who desperately needs something during this holiday season, I'd like to be able to put it into their hands in a good way. A little bit later on the show, I'm going to tell you about how my purse got stolen last Friday at my son's Christmas concert. And it reminded me that there are people out there who are desperate and who don't have a way to be able to do what they want to do this holiday season. And I don't know about you, I'm incredibly grateful that that my child is safe and that my family is safe and that all they stole was my purse. But I am also was made poignantly aware to me that my life is so wonderful and I have so much to be grateful for that would never occur to me to steal somebody's purse, to be able to go empty their bank account out. And I can't even imagine the desperate the mind of the person who did that. Let's be positive this holiday season, and I have some stuff to give away to people who need it. And I would ask for all of you who are watching, share it on your Facebook, spread the word that there's a way to win something and get something for free. Maybe it puts that little bit of hope and that little bit of light in people, and we could all use a little bit of that, right? Especially this week. So please participate in that. Now, I also want to tell you that this whole show is meant to be interactive, as I mentioned before. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate with us. This is separate from the giveaway, right? You don't want to send the giveaway to this information here. But you might be watching us right now at www.autism-live.com. Somebody wrote in the night and said, how do I find your live show? This is how. You go to www.autism-live.com. When you go there, we do a live show Tuesday through Friday right now, and it starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And if you're in a different time zone, please do the math, because it hurts my head. But we're 2 hours. So that's when it's live. And if you go to autism-live.com, there's a desktop there and there's a computer screen. Click on the little triangle that's on that computer screen, and you'll either be watching the live show if you've caught us at the right time, or the most recently recorded live show. And you can also scroll through and find other recently recorded live shows. Now, to the side of that is a long, skinny white box. It's our live feature. Put your cursor there and type away and hit enter, and you can have a conversation with us. It's almost in real time. There's about a 2-minute lag, and it's a wonderful way. That was apparently not working the last couple of days, but it's working now, and thank you for letting us know, because I don't always know. And we've had some questions that came through in the night, and I'm really excited that we're going to have an opportunity to talk about those today. We've got a really exciting show for you. So, all of that being said, I also want to remind you, if you're new and haven't watched the show before, I am not an expert in autism. Let's be 100% clear about that. I'm an autism parent. My son was diagnosed at the age of 2.5. He is now newly 10.5. And we got a lot of great help, and we found resources along the way simply by being lucky. Yeah, I asked some questions, but mostly it was luck. And part of my journey is to pay that forward. I promised I would. I made a deal on my kitchen floor, and I said, help me with my child, and I swear to you, I will turn around and I'll help as many people as I can. So that's why I'm here. I have a mission to try to help you, whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, and you're trying to help a child who's on the spectrum, or a young adult on the spectrum, or you yourself are on the spectrum. I've made an oath to the big guy upstairs that I would try to be helpful. And I have a group of people here who are all in on that, who want to help you as well. They genuinely care about what you have going on, and they want to support you. And it's different for all of us, right? There is no one size fits all, not in life, and certainly not in autism. So write in and tell us what you need, and we'll do our level best to be able to help in the way that we can. All right, we start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day, the jargon du jour. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to make sense of it in this crazy mixed up world. You've got so much on your plate, and then all of a sudden somebody says, by the way, can you memorize all of these terms and be able to use them in a sentence? Thank you. I know you had nothing else to do this week. And it's frustrating because these aren't words that you can look them up in a dictionary, but they're going to tell you something that has nothing to do with autism or psychology. You can look them up online, and they will give you the definition that has to do with autism and psychology. It just doesn't always make sense. So we want to put it in a context. All right. So our word today, we use this one all the time. It's so funny. I never used this word before my son was diagnosed with autism, and now it spouts out of my mouth every 5 seconds, having to do with everything and very little to do with autism. The phrase here, the word is reinforcer. We talk about wanting to reinforce good behavior all the time and not want to reinforce bad behavior. That's the crux of what we're doing here, right? If we had to boil it down to one simple phrase, that's what we're doing. We're trying to reinforce good behavior, and we're trying not to reinforce behaviors that we don't want to see continue. So what does that mean, and what is a reinforcer? Let's take a look at our actual definition. An actual definition for reinforcer: a stimulus/event delivered delivered contingent on the exhibition of a behavior which increases the probability of that behavior continuing to occur or occurring more often in the future. For example, because I go, what? For example, if the child enjoys being tickled, tickles may be used as a potential reinforcer for correct responding for appropriate behavior. All right. With the example, we start to get a bit of an idea. But as soon as I see a stimulus last event delivered contingent, I go, what? Just tell me in plain English. So let's look at our working definition here, which is reinforcer, something that acts as a reward for your child and motivates him or her to continue engaging in a particular behavior, good or bad. And my BCBAs are breaking out into hives right now because this is a watered down version, right? It's not as exact, but really we need to get a hold on this, right? That this idea of that the only behaviors that we do over and over and over and over and over again are behaviors that we got something out of it. We got some sort of a reward out of it. Now, the tricky part is the reward can be something good that happens or something bad that stops, right? So, but always we do things because there's some sort of a paycheck for us. And that's really how I like to think about what's the paycheck for the behavior. And this is not just kids on the autism spectrum. This is absolutely all of us. We all are engaging in behavior every single day. And if you think about the things that you do over and over and over again, and you think, well, I'm not doing that because there's a paycheck. I don't get any paycheck for that. Stop and think about it, because you do or you wouldn't do it. And sometimes the paycheck is like strangely connected, right? And once you start to think about this, you go, oh my gosh, it's a whole other way of looking at life and a whole other way of looking at behavior. But there's always a paycheck. And as I said, sometimes the paycheck is related, sometimes it's not. I talk about some very basic things on the show as examples, like turning on a light switch, but also think about brushing your teeth. Those of us who brush our teeth at least once a day, if not multiple times a day, why do we do that? Well, you know, maybe we did it when we were kids because we had a parent standing over us and prompting us to do it. But at some point when we were adults and out into the real world, we don't have to brush our teeth anymore. We really don't have to. There's no law, but we do. Why do we brush our teeth? And the thing is that different people brush their teeth for different reasons. Some people brush their teeth because they don't want to have the bill when they go to the dentist, right? So they're stopping something negative from happening. Other people don't want the pain of getting their fillings drilled, right? Some of us do it because we like the feeling that we have on our teeth afterwards, or we like the feeling of confidence that we have when we go about our world and we're not constantly thinking, oh, what does my breath smell like, right? So lots of different reasons, and I'll bet if you asked 100 people, you would probably get maybe 60 different responses about why they actually brush their teeth on a regular basis, what the paycheck is. And yet we all engage in this, I hope we all engage in this behavior. Most of us engage in this behavior. So when we're trying to teach a child on the autism spectrum a new skill, and we want to get them to do something that previously maybe it's a behavior that typically developing children just pick up. But for whatever reason, our kids on the autism spectrum or our child on the autism spectrum didn't. So we want to build this skill, and we want to give it in bite-size formats because we want them to be successful, and we want to be able to reward them when they're successful so they'll want to do it again. We want to make the learning process and the growing process so pleasurable that the child will want to engage in this behavior over and over and over again. And we want to do this for all learning, but when it comes to a specific skill, we want to be very specific with it. So if we're teaching toothbrushing to a child on the autism spectrum, we maybe aren't going to have the expectation that they're going to do the whole thing on their own to start with. We're going to shape this behavior over a period of time. But the little increments that we start with, we want to make sure that there's some sort of a reward for doing it that makes them want to come back. And so they got the first element of it, and now that we're going to get another element of it so that it eventually over time, and it may take a year, but the child is now completely proficient at brushing their own teeth, and they feel rewarded for it. We've gotten to the point where we've faded all of our other reinforcement for it, but it's reinforcing in and of itself now. But we couldn't just expect that to happen poof out of nowhere, right? We had to build up towards it. And so we use reinforcers. A reinforcer is something that acts as a reward for your child and motivates him or her to continue engaging in that particular behavior. So if I want my son to say thank you whenever somebody does something nice, I'm going to prompt him and I'm going to ask him to do it. But the fact of the matter is, I can prompt till the cows come home. If there's not something about it that's reinforcing to him, if I'm not there to prompt, it's never going to become his behavior, right? So I got to find a way. And for most of us, we say please and thank you because first of all, we were taught, right? But we continue to do it because we get pleasurable responses back. We don't always, but enough of the time, enough of the percentage time we get a pleasurable response back that we continue to do it. That's not, that reinforcer for most of us is that someone is pleasant and smiles and says thank you back, right? Or just smiles at us. And our brain is hooked up so that we go, well, I like how my life works when I say please and thank you. But our child on the autism spectrum doesn't find that particularly reinforcing to start with. So we got to find a way we might use an external reinforcer, something that has nothing to do with them saying please and thank you and the smile that comes back. But maybe we tickle them because that's reinforcing to them. So now we're pairing the tickling with this thing and we're heaping praise on it as well. And the person is smiling so that over time, we're not going to tickle as much, and then we won't tickle, and we'll see that if we've built this right, the child is noticing that the person is smiling at them, and they continue to do it because they're still getting a paycheck. They're still getting a paycheck, but it's now, a more socially relevant, and it's not something external that we're putting on it. We can do this, though, with every single skill that we want to teach. We can use a reinforcer, something that's really meaningful to the child, pair it with the activity as a reward, and it can spur us to learn new things, and then over time we can fade it back. But this is powerful, powerful stuff. So be thinking about reinforcers and what in particular reinforces your child. Sometimes it's surprising, and a lot of times we have to ask them questions, and that's going to work in different ways depending on the child's abilities and their age. We can figure out what a reinforcer is for a baby who has no verbal skills by placing items in front of them and seeing what they're gravitating towards. So there is no skill level that we cannot figure out what a reinforcer is. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more sleuthing. All right. Moving on, we always have a question of the day for you. And a lot of times lately, I'm trying to be smart about how the question of the day goes with whatever the jargon is. So our question to you today is, what do you or your child like to work for? And it's okay to answer it on both counts, right? Because it's when we find a reinforcer, and it's got to be a true reinforcer that makes the behavior happen again and again and again. And if it's not big enough or it's not the right one, it's not going to maintain that behavior. We're coming up on the 1st of January, and a lot of us are going to make New Year's resolutions, and we're going to say we're going to go to the gym, and a lot of us aren't going to continue going to the gym. And do you know why? It's because the paycheck doesn't fit the level of the commitment of the thing that we have to do. That's it, long and short. And if we worked harder to find out what the reinforcer was that was going to actually make us go to the gym and keep going to the gym, we would do it. That's the long and the short of it. So be asking yourself, what would you like to work for? What would make it worthwhile for you to do the things that are hard for you? And then we can ask about our kids. And I am in the lucky position that my child is old enough and verbal enough now at 10 and a half that I can just point blank ask him. And I can say to him, look, I need you to do this thing today, and it's going to be hard and whatever, and I'm going to reward you at the end of it. What would be a big enough reward for you to be able to get through this and do this? And I know people go, oh, do we have to reward them for everything? They should just want to do these things. Okay, great. But that's not useful to me as an autism parent, because he should have wanted to look people in the eye, and that didn't happen. And I want him to look people in the eye. Right? So I got to give him a paycheck for it. And if I do it enough and I'm consistent with it, and over time I start to fade it, he'll still make eye contact and he won't have that external reward. So I can say to my son, all right, we're going to have to do this. And what happens when I say to him, what would you like to work for? And he says, I want to work for this. I'm much more likely to be successful at everything. I'm much more likely to be successful at everything, because then he knows this is going to be hard. He's prepped for it. He knows he's going to get a paycheck for it. He knows it's a meaningful paycheck for him. And by the way, sometimes the paycheck that he asks for is so minimal compared to what he could ask for. Right now he's in a smoked oyster thing that he just loves, smoked oysters. And so it's a big treat. And if I say to him, we're going to have to do this big, I got to go to this meeting, and you're going to have to entertain yourself for an hour, and you're going to have to, whatever. And I say, so what would you like your paycheck for really good behavior while I'm doing this? And he'll say to me, I'd like to have 4 smoked oysters. Woohoo! I can do that. That's his snack for tonight before bedtime, is that he's going to get 4 smoked oysters. He is a happy camper. He feels like he's done something. He's on his best behavior. I'm successful at the things that I have to do. I feel like a good parent. The oysters are good for him. There is no drawback to this. Now, we weren't always able to ask him that point blank, what do you want to work for? We found other ways. There are other ways. But I'm just making the point that when we know what the reinforcer is, all the good things happen for them and for us. It's really incredible. It's not bribery. It's not bribery, because I'm not threatening to take it away. I'm just offering to give a reward for it. And you and I get rewarded for the good things that we do. We do. And if we don't stay in that circumstance very long. Okay, we always have a topic of the week, and our topic this entire week, and we haven't had a whole lot of time to talk about it because we've had so much else going on, but we are going to talk about it today. Consequence modifications. We talked last week about the ABCs of behavior. The antecedent is the thing that happens before. The behavior is the thing that happens that we want to change, right? We want to increase a behavior or decrease a behavior. And whenever there's an antecedent and a behavior, there's always a consequence. It's just sometimes the consequence doesn't fit what we really want to have happen, and we need to get in there and have some strategies to make the consequence be the thing that's going to help us to encourage behavior we want to see more of and discourage behaviors we want to see less of. So we're going to be talking about that a lot today, and I'm very excited about that. In fact, some of the different things that we have going on here today, we've got a bunch of wonderful guests. David Geslak is going to be with us, and he is a remarkable individual who works in the fitness industry, but specifically with autism. I'm so excited to be talking with him in just a few minutes so that we can find out what we can be doing to get our children to find fitness reinforcing. Woohoo. Isn't that, I need to have that conversation. So very excited to be talking with David about that in just a little while. We have more giveaways that were happening today, and a very special treat in the second hour today. We don't get very much time with her anymore because she's so busy, but BCBA Evelyn Gould is going to be with us, and she's going to be talking with us about consequence modifications. And if you have not seen Evelyn on the show before, Evelyn is a wonderful BCBA who always brings a point of view about what it's like for everyone in this scenario, what it's like for the parent, what it's like for the individual who's on the spectrum, what it's like for the teacher, so that we get that really global perspective. And once we can take everybody's perspective, we can be a lot more productive. So all of that, plus some of the questions that you guys have written in, very excited to be here with you today. When we come back, I'm going to tell you what the giveaway is for this first hour, so don't go away, stick with us. We'll be back. Hi, we're at the Toys R Us in Porter Ranch, California. And Emily and I are going to take a little tour around the store and find some great toys for some great kids.
All right, let's go.
Come with us.
Yes.
Okay, bring your dinosaur and come on, let's go look at things in the game aisle.
Okay.
I know you love games.
I do look.
All right. So here we are in the game aisle, Emily, and I want to show you that there's all these games that you can get for kids of all ages. They're interactive and really remarkable. One of the hot toys this year and many other years is the Bop It toy.
Okay, so what about the Bop It is so reinforcing?
Well, you know what? It can be interactive. It can be a social game. It makes lots of noises. Sometimes they light up depending on the version. It helps to work on fine motor skills and it helps to work on fluency. This toy will grow with the child, and in fact you can get it in different versions. This is a little bit more complex version, and up top here we have one that's especially for older kids. It's called the Smash the Light. I would wait until a child is older to play with this one. So should we check out the Lego aisle?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Go. So how can we use Legos to help our kids?
Well, they're really spectacular toys for our kids because they work on executive functions and planning. They're really colorful. You can work on colors and grouping and matching, counting, because they have the little dots on the top. And if you have a younger child, you can start with the Duplo toys that are compatible with Lego and they don't have the choking hazard.
So then as the kids get older, what's great about Legos, it looks like, is that there's all sorts of themes. We've got movies here and video games, so the kids can really connect with what's personal to them. So Legos are amazing, but what else do we have to see?
Let's look at some educational toys in the leapfrog aisle, shall we? Okay.
Okay, so what do you have here?
Well, we're in the leapfrog aisle. This particular toy, very popular this year, is a leap reader. It comes with a little pen, and it tells us that we're going to read, write, and listen, all skills that we want to work on with a child. This pen that's in this box, you can put it over different pages in the book. It will read aloud to the child. They can trace their letters. It reinforces them for doing a great job. It's a really spectacular toy for our younger kids that are working on reading, writing, and listening.
This looks like a lot of fun and a really great way to help our kids learn to read and write.
Absolutely.
What else are we going to play with today?
I think we should take a trip down the functional pretend play aisle. This is where you're going to find all the things that are like real, but the toy version. So I've got this lovely set here that's all fresh vegetables, so I'm teaching nutrition at the same time. They're all appropriately colored. I've got a knife so I can be cutting them too. This is really great play for a young child.
Shannon, I heard you got some toys that I get to play with now.
Yes, I'm going to take you to the demo table. We're going to let Emily play with some toys, and we're going to be giving some of these toys away on the show. But they're not just any toys. These are toys that are featured in this year's Toys R Us toy guide for differently abled children. And this is put together with the help of our friends at Lecotech.
So what do all these different icons mean?
These are different icons that tell us what skill this toy might help to develop in our children.
So can I play with the toys now?
Yes, it's time to play with the toys, Emily.
So I think I recognize this guy.
Yes, this is the ever popular and very sweet Elmo. But this is a very specific Elmo that teaches adaptive skills like zippering.
Almost yellow triangle zipper.
And so we get the reinforcement of Elmo talking to us when we do these things. There's a let's keep playing. So it encourages the child to continue to interact. And he's very reinforcing. When he giggles, I just want to hug him and play with him some more. Okay, so moving on, let's look at some Melissa and Doug toys. These are incredible toys. They'll last several different generations because they're made out of good quality wood.
Awesome.
And let's start with a lace and trace toy. Now, I happen to know that you love turtles,
I
Emily.
do love turtles.
And this is a set of farm animals lace and trace. And the child can pick out a color that they like for a lace.
All right.
And there are lots of different things that they can do with this. And I know it might seem like this is an old-fashioned toy, but you know, sometimes the old-fashioned toys are the best toys. Because what you're doing right now, Emily, is that you're using a lot of hand-eye coordination and you're using the pincer grasp. This is a precursor to writing right here. If you've got a child who's having difficulty holding a pencil, this is a really reinforcing way to work on this. And it comes in lots of different things. And then also for Melissa and Doug, we have this amazing diminishing switch and spin. Love this so much. This is a great cause and effect toy. As we start to put the gears together, we notice that when you turn one, another one can turn. You can rearrange this and do it in lots of different ways. There are 10 design boards, so you don't have to just do fish. There are other things that you can put there instead.
That's awesome.
Kids love this toy, and it's another Melissa and Doug toy.
Cool.
All right, let's take a look at some fun games.
So I found this game, and it's called Fibber. So Shannon, I'm going to need you to put on your fibbing glasses.
I want a fib.
All right. So this game is totally reinforcing, and it helps our kids to work on lying.
Yes, and that's something we really, I know it sounds strange, but we want to work on that because being able to tell a lie is something that helps with safety issues. And also being able to tell if somebody else is lying is a really useful life skill.
What you need to do is get rid of your cards without trying to grow your nose, kind of like Pinocchio.
Okay.
But if you get caught...
And so eventually you can have a whole string of noses attached to the end of your nose. Very colorful. Again, we can be working on the colors. Kind of hilarious. A kid's going to want to play this with mom or dad and see that mom is Pinocchio telling lots of lies. I like this game a lot.
This is a great game.
We've had a really great time at Toys R Us, and all of the toys that you see here on the table we're going to be giving away on the show. So stay tuned to find out how you can win one of these great toys. Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm sitting here with the, a lot of it is green, the package, but this is a Leap Pad Ultra. This comes from Leapfrog, an amazing company that makes toys that are so educational and so reinforcing. There's our jargon. This is an amazing, amazing gift, and we have one more of these, and we're giving it away in this hour. This is truly a it's a tablet. And it's the perfect first tablet for a child because they're virtually indestructible. They come with a 1-year warranty that's amazing. I'm looking at the back here. All of the different things that it entails in here. You've got kid-safe Wi-Fi experience so that they can be surfing and find only things that are educationally approved. So you know that if you're giving it to them to play with while you're cooking dinner, that you're still supervising, but the child is going to be safe with what they're browsing. There's amazing games that you can play on this. It's just absolutely thrilling. So this is a Leap Pad Ultra, and this is the last one that we're giving away this holiday season. So really remarkable. Make sure that you're watching for the word or phrase that said, and again, we want to thank our friends at Leapfrog for donating this really spectacular toy. This is really going to make somebody's holiday very bright. We did have a question that came in during the break. Somebody wanted to know, can we enter the prize giveaway again if we have already won a toy? You certainly can. Go for it. But I also encourage you, if you've already won, that I'm going to ask you for good karma. If you've already won something, share it. Share it on your Facebook page and say, hey, I won this. You never know who needs to know that there are toys being given away. This can really change somebody's holiday. This is life-changing stuff right here. So share it. Tell people where to find us. It'll be good karma for you, but you can play again. All right. Truly, truly remarkable toy. I wanted to take just a second to talk about, somebody had written in about how do we find the live show. I'm a bit confused. So here's the deal with the live show. The live show plays in a couple of different places. It plays on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. I hope that you guys have checked out our YouTube channel, and it plays at autism-live.com. But it only plays at specific times, 10 a.m. Pacific time, which translates to 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's not two different shows, just that the time span is different. So, and you'll have to do the math wherever you are. But you can watch it in that way. But then the show is recorded live, and it immediately podcasts so that you can watch it on YouTube as soon as it's over now, and you can watch it on our channel, the autism-live.com. All right, so hopefully that clears that up. And one more question from somebody. My son shows many signs of autism, but no one wants to work with him because he uses imaginary play. So though his social is difficult, the imaginary play keeps him from getting properly diagnosed by small, free programs. Should I pursue it or just wait and see? He is 3. And I got a couple of questions similar to this, both here and in the email from different people. Here's what I want you to know from the very bottom of my parent heart, from everything that I have seen. We never, ever, ever want to wait. Not ever. Waiting is, and we will be told to wait. You will be told. Well, people will say, just wait and see how it works out and see what happens, right? Don't listen to those people, because imagine if you were running a race, right? And as you're running the race, you see, oh my gosh, I'm behind. Everybody else is significantly further ahead of me. And you're moving at a speed that's slower than what they're moving at. And somebody says to you, now I can give you a rocket pack to catch up, but maybe you should hang on to it. Maybe you should wait until later. So while you're discussing it, the people got 5 feet further away and you're 5 feet further behind now. So now the rocket pack couldn't quite catch you up. It would get you 5 feet behind them. But you could wait and use it later. And so they get 10 feet further ahead of you now. And now the rocket pack, if you were to use it, is only going to get you 10 feet behind where everybody else is. And then you're going to have to catch up. Should you wait or until you're 15 feet behind and then use the rocket pack? This is the thing that I think a lot of well-meaning people don't realize with autism, is that every day that we wait, if our child is behind on any level, and it doesn't matter whether it's physical or cognitive or executive function or social or verbal skills, if a child gets behind, and it doesn't necessarily have to be they're behind because of autism, by the way. It could be for anything. It could be because their hearing isn't working properly. It could be because they're having trouble distinguishing the sounds. It's not always autism why our kids get behind. But when our kids get behind, a wait and see attitude is not going to help them. It's going to make sure that they're further behind. And we're always talking about setting our kids up for success. It's what we all want to do. I know it's what you want to do. It's what I want to do. Set them up for success. So if we take the tack and saying, okay, I see that my child is behind on this one skill. Well, maybe I should just wait and see. What are we waiting for? Until they're behind on 2 skills or they're significantly behind on that skill? I understand. I waited. And this is why I say to you, we must not wait. I waited probably from the first time that I thought I really need to do something and I really need to see somebody, and when I actually said out loud, I need to get some help and I need to figure out what I need to do, 6 months. It was 6 months. And I tell you that, and then it took me like 3 more months after I said out loud, I think I need some help and support here. It took like another 2 to 3 months before I started getting help, but it was a full 6 more months before I could start ABA. So if you really think about it, I lost an entire year. And I try very hard not to beat myself up about that 6-month or 1 year time period. And I have to be very conscious about it. And I tell you that every day I meet a parent who's beating themselves up about however long that time was that we waited. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking about waiting because somebody said you should, or somebody closed a door and you think, well, maybe I'll just wait, I want you to know that you're in good company. A lot of us have been there and done that. And I would beg of you, I talked yesterday about following in other people's footprints. These are footprints I don't want you to follow in. A lot of us waited and we all wish we hadn't. If there was one thing we could give you today, it would be to empower you to say, I am not waiting. This may not be an emergency to you, but it is an emergency to me. My child is behind, and before my child gets any further behind, here's what we're going to do. And there are people who will work with your child. Here's the good news, is that if somebody is saying they're not going to work with your child because your child has imaginary play and they consider that your child is too high functioning to need this therapy, well, the good news is you didn't waste all your time with them. But there are people who do work with kids who are high functioning autism, and kids who don't even have autism but are behind in a social skill. Find those people, and if you need us to help you to find those people, let me know, and I'll figure out a way to get somebody on that. Make sure you tell us what part of the world that you're in, but you mustn't wait. You mustn't wait. A 3-year-old who is behind in social skills is not that far behind, because 3-year-olds don't have a lot of social skills, right? But you can be behind on social skills as a 3-year-old. And it's important to catch these things at this period of time before you wait until when they're behind at 5, which is infinitely harder. And 5 is a much better time to catch it than at 8. Infinitely harder. And I can tell you at 10 that it's that much harder. And there are parents who can tell you that when they're a teenager, it's that much harder. We cannot wait. And I even hear myself saying that there are things that I haven't quite got to and I need to get on the stick immediately. So don't wait. Find the people who will help your child. It's great that he has imaginary play. Let's celebrate that. That's a strength. But don't let people penalize your child for having a strength. You can advocate for your child. Get in there and say, my child is behind in this. This is what I want. There are social skills groups out there, and there are providers who will work with you to get those social skills brought up to speed. Somebody else wrote in over the night and said, do I need to go and get a diagnosis because I initially went someplace and they said my child was too high functioning to get a diagnosis. Here's the thing that we hear over and over from our experts, that at this moment, this rare moment in time, the only thing that a diagnosis does for you, and I say only, although it's quite a big thing, is gives you access to funding for services. For a lot of us, that's essential. So if you need help funding your services, which is almost all of us, it's the rare person who doesn't need that help, but if you do need help funding services, then you've got to pursue the diagnosis from somebody who's going to look at your child as an individual and diagnose according to the criteria. There are many children who qualify for an autism spectrum diagnosis who can do imaginary play. They do. You can, because of the way the criteria works, you can fit into that and still do imaginary play. So you might want to ask your local support group if who is going to give a diagnosis and not just stamp and say, this child's too high functioning, I can't diagnose. It's possible that your child will come back and they will say your child does not have autism, that your child has something else. But if you're needing help with access to services, you have to at least consider getting the diagnosis. If you have the financial backing and the financial wherewithal to be able to fund the services, don't mess with it if you don't have to, and go start services. Get good quality ABA. For those of you who are caught in between, if you have a child who is so high functioning that you cannot get a diagnosis, you went to a qualified person and they said, I just can't, they don't have autism, but your child is still behind, right? You still have the ability to seek out services through your school district, and you still have access to ABA services. It's just going to be a little bit more intensive on your part. You can do IBT trainings to train yourself about how to do the techniques. You can use a program like Skills to have the curriculum to get your child caught up. But if your child's behind, waiting is not an option. No matter what it is that they're behind on, waiting, not an option. Keep that in mind. Write in for help if you need specific help. We're here for you. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I believe that it is time for us to be joined by Dave Geslak from EC Autism. So stick with us. We're very excited because we're in the Noah's Ark exhibit and we're here with Jason Porter. Thank you for taking us on this tour.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So you're going to show me around a little bit and show me some of the secrets of the Noah's Ark exhibit, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Cool, let's go.
Yeah.
So Jason, tell us, this is an amazing space. Why is it so incredible for children?
One of the values of the Skirball Cultural Center is taking care of the earth and one another, and so this idea of repurposing materials that would otherwise be tossed off was a big component to how we designed the galleries. It's based on, certainly the story that everyone knows is the one from the Hebrew Bible, the story of Noah. But in our research, we looked at over 200 flood stories from around the world, and many different cultures have flood stories that have similarities, and the similarities that we identified were these 3 chapters: the storm, some crazy challenge that comes to your life; an ark, a kind of means of survival, a way for a community to come together to survive; and finally the rainbow, which is this kind of symbol of hope, the second chance to make the world anew.
Love it. All right, let's take a look through, and we're going to talk about some of the learning opportunities that are available here.
Sure. We really wanted people to kind of discover what they were supposed to do. For example, this elephant has a gong in the center, and there's a little wheel here that you can turn and see what happens. But there's also some hidden things, like there's a little peephole in this polar bear, so it's kind of a moment where you could talk with your kids about what does it mean that that polar bear in there only has a small piece of ice to live on it, and you could talk about kind of the environmental issues that might be associated with it.
All right, should we go downstairs?
Yeah, let's check out the storm.
So Jason, what do you call this room?
This is called the Storm Gallery. In one side of the gallery, we have a storm wall, which is all sorts of sounds and sight effects to make the storm come to life. But we have this, what we call the load up. It's fairly intuitive. You put animals onto the conveyor belt and you turn the wheel and they get loaded up onto the ark. Except you can't do both at the same time by yourself. It's kind of layered in the doing, the learning that we're really interested in, which is about this notion of working together in order to accomplish something. So, when you first get on the ark, obviously you enter 2 by 2 as the story goes. And so the animals in this first section of the ark, they're not quite sure where they should be. They're a little bit nervous about who to hang out with. The gallery is really organized so that the animals are still in pairs. So we talk a lot about what are the elements of home that you need to survive. And it's really a nice kind of intro into the whole experience of being in a community, learning to be together with people who may or may not be the same as us. This gallery of Noah's Ark is unique, I think, in terms of the way that it was designed, that it offers a huge variety of experiences in a way that really accommodates people of all stripes and spots. So there are more quiet zones, like we just left in the move-in day, where you can come into this room where you have a lot of large motor things that are happening, including climbing, and we kind of have nicknamed this the arcade. It's kind of the chapter in the story where they're making new families and they're mixing with other animals that they've befriended. Oh, we have to talk about poop.
We can't do a show without talking about poop.
So, the other fact of life on an ark is that everybody poops. So the challenge is to, clean up.
Okay, so we're in the last room, very cool room. What do we call this room?
We call this the Rainbow Gallery. People really get that this is a place of hope. Sometimes there's an art-making project, that it ends in some sort of inspiration, that people feel like they're inspired to take action in the world and make it a better place.
Thank you so much for showing us everything and telling us about all the wonderful things at the Skirball Center. Welcome back to Autism Live. Joining us via Skype right now is David Geslak, and he is an expert on fitness and in particular working with children on the autism spectrum. So he is here with us from the Exercise Connection, and I understand, David, that you are Skyping to us from cold Chicago.
That is correct. -20 this morning.
Ooh. And we were griping about a 48 degree here in Los Angeles, but I'm glad you look warm now. Thrilled to have you here, especially for this topic. Let's start out by talking about what is the Exercise Connection?
The Exercise Connection develops transformative approaches and programs for individuals with autism and other special needs. But about 4 years ago is when I started the Exercise Connection. However, I've been working with children on the spectrum and adults, actually soon be going on my 10th year this year. And we are developing one-on-one programs, privately working with kids in the home, and also in group training, obviously in the Chicagoland area. We have recently just partnered with North Suburban Special Education District, which is a special needs school district here in Illinois. They piloted our model, our visual exercise system, and within their school, we trained their staff and their special needs, or they call it their ELS classroom. And in 6 weeks, because of the structure, because of the visual supports that they weren't getting, they've seen tremendous success with their children. And now I'm very excited. We had a meeting last week, and they want the program implemented in 27 of their schools. And that's from kindergarten all the way to their transition program. So a lot of work for us next year, but we're very, very excited and happy to do this, because we believe that it will become the model for a lot of physical education, or even to aid in adaptive physical education.
David, this is so exciting, because this is an area that we need to shed a spotlight on, because all of our kids need physical fitness, and bridging that gap with autism and making it reinforcing for them, making it rewarding for them, so very important. I know our show is international and people are going to want this information. So where can they find out more information about what it is that you've been doing?
There's 2 websites right now. E as in exercise, C as in connection, autism.com. Again, EC, autism.com. And we're still working out a couple bugs, but it's called myvisualexercise.com. Again, myvisualexercise.com. And those are where you can find some information about what we're doing, and obviously the visual exercise system.
Really remarkable. David, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back, and I want to ask you some questions about how this works and what the success stories are that you've had from kids who've had the benefit of this. So stick with us. We're going to be back with David Geslak after these messages.
Hello, fellow activists. Last segment, we talked about step 3, get support. Step number 4 is don't compare, run your own race. Now, it's one thing to aspire to be like someone that's really helped their child. We all want to do that. That's really different than keeping up with the Joneses. That only serves to make you envious and full of regret. There will always be someone who has a child with autism who is doing better than yours, and there will always be someone who has a child with autism who's doing worse than yours. One morning I was talking to the mom of a recovered child who told me he had been moved into the gifted class. Well, I had heard that week that my own son, who was in 5th grade, was reading at 1st grade level. Now, I have to admit, I was kind of proud of him until that phone call, which put me over the edge. The green-eyed monster of jealousy. Well, later that same day, I got into the elevator as I was taking my son to clinic. There was a father with his 2 sons, one typical and one with severe autism. He was pretty much nonverbal, but he did make some very strange sounds over and over again. He had bite marks, scratches all over his arms. He wore mittens to protect him from himself. The father, however, had a big smile on his face. Needless to say, the universe was sending me a message that day. Don't compare. Be grateful for the progress your child has made and will continue to make. So until next time, keep running your own race at your own pace. Don't forget to stop for water and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are right now with David Geslak from EC Autism, which is Exercise Connection, and he is in cold Chicago. We're here in Los Angeles, but thrilled to be talking with him about fitness for our kids on the autism spectrum. So before we went to break, David, you were talking about how you've been implementing this program. You've been doing it for over 10 years, and now you're going to be implementing it in more of the area schools. And I wanted to ask you, what in particular do you find is effective at motivating kids on the autism spectrum to take part in physical fitness?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. And as you know, all of our children are unique. And as you know, the saying is, if you met one child with autism, you met one child with autism. So it's when working with families or in groups, it's really about finding what, talking with mom or dad, or talking with the paraprofessional that may spend all day with that child or adult, and hey, what is motivating for him or her? Because I wish I had the cookie cutter approach to this for everyone, but it's not out there. And these kids, you need different ways to interact, like you're asking. One, Rowan, I started with him when he was 3.5, stereotypical autism, limited verbal, and that was the youngest boy I ever worked with. He is now 6. He is on my show, what's called Coach Dave. He'll be released in a couple months, but he has better verbal abilities along with his motor planning. It's amazing. And that wasn't just me. That was the developmental therapist, the OTs, the PTs. But the key is that he knows about exercise and that it's different from therapy. And the way that I recently connected with him, because now he continues to challenge me, is he's 6 years old, but I have to wear a stormtrooper mask. And I'm not kidding you, it's awesome. But he works out because I am commanding him to work out. So in that private setting, it's totally different than, trying to do it in a group-based setting. And I think both group and private, that's where the visual exercise system comes in, because we know these kids' sensory needs. Gym is the most unsensory friendly environment by far in the school, and they need visual supports.
And so tell us about what the visual system is. You're giving them pictures of each exercise that they need to do? Yes. And I'm gonna quickly run and grab it because I should have had it on my desk. Okay. But the visual system is a color-coded system that truly challenges the student or the child, not the teacher. Okay. Because it's all pre-made, it's built. Boardmaker doesn't have it. Not broken down into real concepts that these kids are gonna understand. The clear way that when I was doing this prior to building the system, to create a soccer visual for Boardmaker only had a half of a leg and a ball. What does that tell our children if we want them to kick it to their partner or kick in a goal? Right. And I had to create like 7 different images, and I spent, 20 minutes doing that. But now I've made it easier on teachers so they don't have to do that. All right, here's what I'm going to do, Dave, because I want you to go get it, and I want us to be able to look at it. So we're going to take another break, and then we'll come back and talk with David, and he'll have the pictures so that he can show us. Because, first of all, I want to say I'd like to clone you, David, because your willingness to think outside the box and look at each one of our children individually and do what needs to be done to motivate them, including wearing a stormtrooper mask. We just need more of you in the world. Thank you. And I gotta make sure everyone comes back, because I'm going to tell you the kicker to this visual exercise system when we come back. Okay. So you've got that. Stick with us. Don't anybody go anywhere, because David's going to tell us more about this right back after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. For December, I thought we'd work on an activity that is a handmade gift for someone who is super special in your life. It could be for a teacher, family member, or a friend. So let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing for this activity are cardstock, pencil, glue, and crayons. This activity is making a monogram letter filled with crayons. This activity is great because it works on the pincer grasp, and also planning ahead, since you're going to be having to break the crayons to fit the inside of the letter. So to begin this activity, first things first, mom or dad or guardian is going to have to draw out the letter for the kid. If that's a little difficult for you, you can always just print something out from your computer and then glue it on the heavy cardstock, all right? I'm going to go ahead and draw mine freehand. So now that my letter M is drawn out, now it's time to fill it in with the crayons. So I'm going to take them and place them onto it accordingly and try to break them into pieces that'll fit the spaces perfectly.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
So now that you figured out the sizes of the crayons to fill in your letter, now take your glue and fill in the space and start laying them back in. Now we're going to let this dry for a little while. Once your monogram is done drawing, feel free to decorate it any way you feel. I'm going to write a little message, but you can do whatever you want.
Stars come out and swirl around so high.
So here's my finished monogram letter. Hopefully Ms. Mackenzie is going to love her gift, and I hope you enjoy doing this activity with me. Until next time, guys, craft on. Bye.
When you see me flying by your side.
Welcome back. We're here with David Geslak, and he is from EC Autism. That's Exercise Connection. He is a fitness expert who has a particular interest and expertise in the field of autism, motivating and teaching our kids on the spectrum physical fitness. And he has been talking about his visual system of teaching a child. So you ran to grab that, David. Show us what you've got.
All right, so this is actually just an example of what we show schools, but everything's pre-made, and if you see here, this is a first then board. The system comes with all of that.
Okay.
But everything is color coded, and there's 3 reasons why we do that. Here is, for example, cardiovascular fitness. This is actually, you can't tell, it's not white, it's actually an off-white.
Okay.
Then we have muscular fitness. Abdominal strength, because that's a huge area that's weak in most of our children, a fitness room, and we actually have yoga and sport, and there's another couple components. But the reason we color code it, like I said, is for 3 reasons. 1, it's to keep the professional organized. 2, it is because color affects a different part of the brain, which essentially keeps our children focused.
Okay.
So we've used it for that. And the third, which is the one I wanted to share with everyone, is that small system that you've seen, or every system that is pre-made or built, is built by Exercise Connection champions. And those are individuals with autism. So they are fully paid, they are paid very well, and they are building these systems that are now across the world.
Okay. And so when you're going to work with a child, do you basically set up a visual schedule and say, right now we're going to be working on, and it's got the color coded, we're going to be working on the cardiovascular, and then when you're going to work on the yoga, it's the different color and it shows the child the progression of what they're going to do?
Yes, and we also do it where they don't have to do all cardio. They may do a cardio, then a posture, then a yoga pose or something. And the beauty of it is, like with Rowan, for example, when he was even younger at 3.5, the verbal was too much for him. So I would literally just lay out visuals and he would start to choose them.
Okay.
And then we would start to do them. And again, whether it's a young child or even an adult, what I tell parents is depending on the child and their abilities, you may still have to revert back to what you did when they were younger, because you're implementing a whole new program that they never experienced. So you may have to go back to those visuals, those first then, and those schedules.
Sure.
In order to create that success, because that is what they may be familiar with. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. We talk about visual schedules all the time, and about how if we're going to have to do something, being able to understand visually, it can be key to making it peaceful and reducing the stress involved. And then expectations are clear. We're setting our kids up for success. So I absolutely love it. And as I said, I would like to clone you. I'm thrilled that more Chicago schools are going to be doing this. But if there are schools that are out there that want to implement this system and have their teachers trained, how do they go about that?
I've trained people, and I've trained in Cairo, Egypt. I trained a whole center out there called the Advanced Center, in Dubai and Barbados. So if you want to contact me, I can come out. I've done keynotes, but I've done full workshops for schools or organizations and educating staff on how to really start to implement exercise and create a successful structure and routine for the kids or group.
And if a parent is interested in this and they want to be able to go to some place that has this and they're not in the Chicago area, I would imagine that you're starting to train people at different gyms to be able to do this. Are you at the point yet, or are you hoping to get to the point where people can search for somebody who's trained in this in each area?
Yes and no.
Okay.
To answer your immediate question, I do have books and DVD to help educate parents on how to do that.
Okay.
However, I worry about going to the general personal training, because I've had this happen with a parent who's told me they've sent him to a physical or a personal trainer, and then the trainer overworked the child. They weren't sensitive to autism. And again, some of these personal trainers, don't get me wrong, there are great, amazing trainers out there. However, some of them still have your weekend certification.
Yeah.
And if you're going to put a child with autism in that environment, and not have any idea from the special needs background, and if you look at my staff, they have special needs first, physical fitness second.
Okay.
So that's why I'm not at that point.
Okay.
Essentially yet.
So we just need to clone you until there are enough of you to go around. Well, we're almost out of time, but I want you to talk. You mentioned that you're going to be coming to our area, close to our area, in January, and I want you to tell our audience what it is that you're going to be partaking in.
Yeah, it's the Clinton Foundation has asked me to, sponsored by Nike. It's called the Clinton Health Matters Initiative. And it's sponsored by Nike and this whole movement called Design to Move, and it's for kids, just to get them active. But they have chosen me as one of 25 thought leaders to come in and truly provide my education on autism and other cognitive disabilities. And I'm honored and humbled to be there, but very excited to not just make them aware of what is going on in the autism community and what our kids need, but to truly educate them. Because I think that's what we see is there's too much awareness, and in my opinion, awareness raises questions, education provides answers. So I want to provide those answers for this group.
Well, I think that's remarkable. And we want to remind people how they can get to your website. Emily had it up on the screen a second ago. But so it's ecautism.com, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you have the other site, myvisualexercise.com.
Yep.
And when they go to those places, do they have access to the books and the DVDs that you've done?
Yes, and there's a shop page, and yeah, it's easy access, so you can see that. And I do have a show, and if you don't know, it's called the Autism Channel, which currently is on Roku devices. Yes. So I have a show called Coach Dave on there, and as you know, Roku, as long as you have that, the Autism Channel is free, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
So there is a show called Coach Dave on the Autism Channel.
Love that, and we are friends with the folks at the Autism Channel, so we love what they're doing and think that that's great. So Coach Dave, there we go, remarkable. So thank you so much for being here with us today, and we wish you luck at this Clinton initiative.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
You take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Really remarkable young man. I think that's really incredible, and we have so much to learn, and I'm so grateful that he had a few minutes to spend with us. We have to go to break. We're a little bit running behind now, but we're going to go to break and go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. And in this particular episode, they're working on the potty training. We've had a lot of questions about potty training, and so this is the time period in which they were working on potty training with Jack Riley. When we come back, we're going to talk about the toys for this hour for our giveaway, and then we're going to be joined eventually by BCBA Evelyn Gould. We're going to be talking about consequence strategies and modifications. So stick with us.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids, takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing?
Pooping.
You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
No, I can't help you pee. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time. We can come play after. Hurry.
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Uh-oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack.
Big press for your pee-pee.
Big pee-pee.
Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job.
What a big boy! High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
And we see how excited he is, and they're all praising and clapping, and that excitement. And if you continue to watch the series on their very own YouTube channel, you will see that behavior is maintained. So we know for sure that all of that praise and attention was very, very reinforcing, and you will see them start to fade all of that back. They're not every time he's in there going to the bathroom, screaming and yelling and clapping and having everybody in there. Obviously, that gets faded back, and still that behavior maintains, because other things about being able to use the bathroom and not have the pull-ups and being the big boy become more reinforcing for him. This is how it works, but knowing what's reinforcing, key. Okay, speaking of things that might be reinforcing, we have our giveaways for today. We've got two amazing games here. I've got lots of pieces here from Endless Games. We have here Encore. We talked about this one a little bit last week. This is a fun game. If you've got singers in your household, you pick a word, and then everybody around the table has to come up with songs that have that word in the lyrics, and they have to sing them. It's very fun. My husband loves this game. And this one, this is sort of the all-star for me, because my husband, his favorite game was Encore, and my son's favorite game was Anger Management. And this is a super duper fun game where it's got lots of different things to work on, and it brings up lots of different discussion where you talk about how steamed you would be if something happened, or what would be the most annoying thing in a certain circumstance. And it brings up lots of conversation where you're talking about, is this something that you would get a little bit unhappy about, or would you be really boiling hot about it? And trying to figure out what other people would get mad about, trying to guess what the response of dad would be about which would he find more annoying, if you hid his remote control or if you hid his phone, right? And it allows for some cognitive thinking, some perspective taking, some executive functions, and putting it all into a fun, reinforcing game. And yet you're talking about all these wonderful things with your child about what's an appropriate response, and that something might make you upset, but is it full-on anger? Really clever, fun. We were laughing hilariously while we were playing this game. There's one aspect of it where you try to come up with what's the most annoying thing to happen in a certain place that was creative. Really, really enjoy it. They have pet peeves on here. There are what's your least favorite. There's the thing about whining, a thing about bugging off, and about mood swings. Really clever. Even the instructions are hilarious to this game. So these are the two games that we're giving away in this hour. So if you want to win these, very simple instructions. You need to be watching the show. And at some point, Emily will put a word or phrase on the bottom of the screen. You want to email that to us. So Emily will put the email address up there on the screen for you. And in the subject line, you will put which game you want to win. You'll either put Anger Management or Encore for this hour. Last hour, it was the Leap Pad Ultra. And then in the body of the email, you put the word or the phrase that she shows on the screen during this hour. Easy peasy, right? Then that has to arrive to us via email by 7 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, a winner will be chosen at random of the correct responses. I cannot stress enough how many people will write in and they don't get it exactly right. So make sure that you're getting it exactly right. It's got to be the game for this hour and the right phrase, and get that emailed to that address that she showed you. Okay. And then share it. Share the fact that we're giving away some great things on your Facebook and your Twitter, whatever it is, but share it. It's good karma. I think it makes you more likely to win. I can't scientifically prove that, but I believe it in my heart. In any case, we are going to take a break. When we come back, Evelyn Gould, who is a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst, is going to be with us, and we're going to talk about consequence strategies and modifications that we can make to encourage behaviors to happen again and again, and to encourage behaviors that we don't want to see to disappear or go away. So stick with us. We'll be back after these messages.
So the holidays are fast approaching, and you might be looking for a fun cookie recipe you can make with your kids. Well, thankfully, Breads from Anna has given us a great sugar cookie recipe that we can make that's gluten-free. So let's get started. Here's some of the things you'll need. For the dough, you'll need 1.5 cups of vegetable shortening, 2 cups of sugar, 2 tablespoons vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon almond extract, 4 eggs, 3 cups of Breads from Anna dairy-free flour, 2 cups potato starch, 2 teaspoons baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And for the icing, you'll need 1/2 cup of shortening, 1/2 cup of butter, 1 tablespoon vanilla, 4 cups confectioner's sugar, and 2 tablespoons of almond milk. To start with, we're going to just mix together our liquids. So we've got our shortening, eggs, our vanilla, and our almond. And we're just going to go ahead and cream these together. So once that's all creamed, we're going to go ahead and add our dry ingredients, starting with our Breads from Anna flour. And we've got our potato starch, and we've got our baking powder and salt. We're also going to go ahead and put in 2 cups of sugar. All right, once that's all blended together, we're going to go ahead and cover this and chill for about an hour or overnight in your fridge. So it's been an hour, our dough should be cool. So we're gonna try to roll this out to about 1/2 inch to about 3/4 inch in thickness. So while I'm rolling out the dough, I preheated the oven to 400 degrees. And I have a baking stone preheating in the oven that I'm gonna set these on. But if you don't have a baking stone, that's okay. You can just use a cookie sheet with parchment paper. Now you're gonna take your cutter and just cut out all your cookies. All right, so I'm gathering my cookies, my little dudes here. That's good. Let's go ahead and put these in the oven. And these should be good to go in about 6 minutes. So while our cookies are baking, we can go ahead and start making the frosting that we're gonna use once they're done. So we're gonna need our shortening. We're gonna go ahead and add our butter. We're gonna add our vanilla. We're gonna start to blend this. Okay, so once we cream these together, we're gonna go ahead and add our sugar just a bit at a time. And last but not least, we're gonna add our almond milk just to soften it up a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. So once our cookies are done baking and we've given them time to cool, we can go ahead and frost them all. Okay, so our cookies are ready. Let's go get them. These look pretty good. Now's the part where you get to be creative with your kids. Feel free to ice these in different colors, with sprinkles, however you want. We've got our cool cookies here, our homemade icing. All right, these look great. For more of these recipes and to possibly win some of your own breads from Anna, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live, and we'll see you there soon. Thanks for joining me.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So thrilled because we haven't had the pleasure of having her in the studio for a while. Evelyn Gould is back with us. Welcome back to the show.
It's been a while.
It has been a while because you've been a very busy person doing wonderful work all over the world, really. She's a board-certified behavior analyst, and we're so thrilled that we had an opportunity to have you come in today to talk to us about consequence modifications and strategies. Okay. So, I think that one of the hardest things about consequence for parents is the need to be consistent. And yes. And maybe to also, as I'm thinking about it in this moment, the need to not react in the moment. I always want to decide the consequence in the moment, and that's never a good recipe for me.
No, it's not a good recipe for anybody. That is exactly right. The most difficult thing, I think, about using consequence strategies. So by consequence strategy, what we're talking about is what you do when the behavior that you don't want happens, or the behavior that you want doesn't happen. So it's it's not a preventative strategy per se.
Right.
It's like what am I going to do now that this has happened? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Right. So the most difficult thing about that is that you're already dealing with potentially a really difficult behavior, and so you're right. It can be really hard to then not make up a strategy on the spot and then you're bringing in like your feelings about the behavior, and if your kid's doing something that you don't really want, you're likely to feel annoyed or anxious, or you're worried about what other people are thinking. You have a lot of like stuff going on for yourself, and then we kind of react. We can react with respect to that.
Yeah.
Especially when we're really, really, it's the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Like you're trying to get out the door and you've got a million other things going on, and you're like, "Are you doing this to me now?" kind of thing.
Right.
He's like, "No, we're not having it," and we tend to like react that way. And when we do that, then we don't always do the right thing. We don't always do the most effective thing in the long run. So it might, if you're lucky, what you decide to do in that reactionary state will be momentarily effective. So your kid might be like, "Oh gosh, okay," but it's not in the long term usually the best thing to do.
Right.
So you're
for
right, that
anyone.
No, for anybody. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I know when people in my life generally annoy me, my immediate reaction is usually not necessarily what could be beneficial in the long run. with
we all
that
share
person's
that, right?
behavior. So yeah, that's one problem. And then the other thing is the consistency. It can be really difficult to be consistent with consequences. That's why if you have a BCBA or someone coming to work with you with your child, they should be focusing your attention on the preventative type strategies and teaching your kid alternative behaviors, so alternative ways to get their needs met rather than needing to have a massive tantrum on the floor, and putting in place sort of the before stuff. So changing some things that are triggering the behavior, or changing some things beforehand, so to try and prevent it, because it is really hard to get consequences right.
Yes.
The one consequence, of course, that we always recommend is positive
reinforcement.
Yes.
There, thank you. I was like, wait a minute.
I was like,
Because well, no, I thought it was going to fail the test.
See, because we always think, I think our general default is to think of consequences as like punishment.
Negative. Yes. Yes.
Which is also the problem, because punishment brings a whole bunch of other issues along with it.
Yes.
Which is another reason why we try to stay away from punishment procedures. It's not that they don't work. They can be very effective, but it's hard to get them right and be consistent. And you might have to deal with a bunch of these other kind of collateral side effects of punishment that are not very nice. So whenever you'll notice whenever you punish a behavior, just say with your spouse, if you yell at them or something, they don't normally react too well.
Yeah.
People get emotional.
Yes.
They usually quite often can hit out at you in some way, or bark back at you. So it's the same with our kids. Punishment procedures can kind of bring out these aggressive responses. People can start to want to avoid you and then they just go off and do the behavior when you're not there. You can have like an emotional reaction. People get afraid of you. So I think we talked maybe over a year ago about the tiger mom or something.
Yes.
I remember you asking me about it, and one story you had talked to me about where the kid was saying they basically became kind of afraid of their parents.
Yeah. The one young man who wasn't the tiger mom, but the lion dad or whatever they were calling him, and they interviewed his son, his oldest son, and he said, I love my dad, but I have no desire to ever spend time with him again the rest of my life.
Right. So if you emphasize those punishment type procedures, you can essentially it's the pairing problem where you turn yourself into a punishing thing to be around. And the other thing about common punishment, so response cost is one that people use a lot, and that can be, so basically that is where if the child does something, you take something away from them, which is everybody uses that with teenagers in particular in the everyday life. And we do use it with kids with autism, and it can be very effective, but it needs to be used in conjunction with other reinforcement reward procedures, because you can get into a state where you start taking stuff away and then eventually there's nothing left to take away, and the kid can just be like, well, there's nothing left to lose kind of situation.
It's one of those things that I think we all jump to, but it's a tool and a strategy that we shouldn't use unless we know how to do it, I think.
Exactly. And we are, you're right, I think as human beings we're kind of programmed to resort to those strategies, because the fact is that in the moment, they can be immediately very effective at stopping somebody from doing something. But in the long run, that's the problem. In the long run, that you get these other side effects, and it doesn't necessarily work in the best way. So that's why we always go back to the reward and the reinforcement, because we know from the literature that rewards. Reinforcing behaviour is a much better way to get the behaviours that you do want. It's a much better way to get that long-term change and get the things that you want happening.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because this is where it gets confusing, and I want to take a break because I got a little tickle anyway. But because and our word for the day was reinforcer. But I think even I, in a moment just now, was saying, wait a second. So we're talking about when it's a behavior we don't want, and how can if a behavior is happening that we don't want, how can we get to the positive reinforcement? So Evelyn Gould's going to explain that to us after this break of how you compare these two things together. And have it be very effective. It's going to blow your mind. So it will. So stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So thrilled to have Evelyn Gould with us in the studio right now. She's a board-certified behavior analyst with extensive experience working with children on the autism spectrum, and she is just always a balm for the raveled nerves. So thrilled to have her here talking about consequence strategies and modifications. Last week we talked about antecedent modifications, yes. So that's why we're now at this point talking about the other end of this spectrum. That, you know, and in both cases, when a behavior is happening that we want to see more of, making sure that the consequence we provide is something that's reinforcing. But when we're seeing behaviors that we don't want to see, you wouldn't think that it would follow to focus on the positive reinforcement, and yet we find that it's the thing that's really effective. So explain to us what you mean by that.
So what we want to do is when we're talking about consequences, we're thinking about the consequences not just with respect to the problem behavior, so not what happens after the problem behavior, what you normally do to manage that, but you're thinking about the consequences with respect to the behaviors that you want as well, because yes. That is what you want to focus on. And we really want to think about reinforcement with respect to the behavior we want.
Right.
So providing it, right. Making sure that we are reinforcing the things we want, and then with respect to the problem behavior, removing it. So we don't want to reinforce the problem behavior. So that's why it's important to know what the function is of the problem behavior, so right. You can then, if you know why your child's doing something and what they're getting out of it, like what the payoff is, and a lot of the time we don't realize that we're paying off that behavior with yes. Our behavior, because, for example, a kid who's doing something for attention, we might think that we're punishing that behavior by yelling at them and telling them to stop doing stuff and telling them that they're not getting what they want and all this kind of like, yeah. And in fact, we're actually reinforcing that behavior because the kid wants attention. And to a kid, yeah is attention as much as like, I love you, I love you, I love you.
Yeah.
For some adults too, funnily enough.
Yes.
Yes, I know a few people who, if I don't give regular attention to, I'll start getting type right. messages on things. So really thinking like, what is the consequence of this problem behavior? And I need to not find a way to not provide the same consequence. So I need to change what it is I'm doing with that problem behavior. But looking at the behavior I do want, am I providing positive consequences for that behavior? And if I am, or is it enough? Like, is my reinforcement enough to make it worth it for that child to do what I want them to do? And am I prompting the behavior that I want in order to for the child to be able to do it, so I can give them the reinforcement? Because sometimes we'll like say, okay, I'm going to reinforce this behavior, but the desired behavior is not happening. Maybe the kid doesn't have the skills to be able to show that behavior to you, or you haven't kind of done your antecedent stuff to make the behavior happen, or the rewards just aren't worth it compared to what they can get for the problem behavior. So thinking about all of that. So we're talking about manipulating the consequences of both. And you should only be reinforcing
behaviors that you want to see more of.
Want to see more of. And trying to remove the reinforcement that was happening for the problem behavior, because we know the reinforcement was happening for the problem behavior, because that's why the problem behavior was happening.
Okay, so can we use my example of what's been going on with Jen the last couple of weeks? So Jem is able to play on the computer upstairs, and a lot of times I'll be cooking downstairs and he's done his homework and he goes upstairs to play on the computer. It's his free time, but I'm cooking dinner, and once I've cooked dinner, I sort of want to, I want to go on vacation for a few minutes. For me, this is a great deal of energy expended, and what I want is for him to come downstairs and happily eat his dinner and everything be wonderful, the Norman Rockwell, right? But it starts as I'm finishing up dinner, that I will yell up the stairs and say, well, before I was just yelling upstairs saying it's dinner time. And I've got the table down, and I want a child to magically appear and be there and be grateful that there's food there in front of him. So I would just yell upstairs and say, Jem, it's time for dinner, and then be met with silence. And then I would yell a few minutes later and a little louder, Jem, it's time for dinner. You got to come down. And now I'm already angry. Like, who would want to come to that voice, first of all? And then I get into if you don't come downstairs right now, blah, 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 right? And then he comes downstairs, and now I'm angry, and he's frustrated because he has to leave the computer upstairs, and we sit down to eat dinner, and I'm like, I cook a meal. People could just be grateful. Right? Right? I turn into this horrible witch, right? And it's not pleasant for anybody. So, because I have the benefit of being on the show with people who say things, and I go, oh, maybe I should do things differently. So I had a week ago when we were doing antecedent, I had changed the beginning, so I started to give him a little bit of a countdown, because he's leaving a preferred activity to come to something that's good but not as preferred as playing on the computer. So I started giving him a little bit of a countdown, going 5 minutes before and saying, hey, you got 5 minutes, wind up whatever you're doing. And then giving him a 1 minute and making him say, yes, Mom, after the 5 minute and the 1 minute. And I was a little bit ticked that I had to do that, because that to me is a step back. We used to do that. But what happened this week, amazingly, was that I turned around a couple of times. I'd say, I'd yell up and go, Jem, you have 1 minute left. And I would turn around to go put the plate on the table to call him and say, it's time. And he was already there. And I was like, what happened here, right? But I fortunately knew enough to remember that I needed to do a consequence right then. And so I stopped everything and said, thank you for coming down the first time, so that I didn't have to yell. And I hugged him and said, hey, I think, we'll have a special treat tonight. You can watch this show. You get to decide what we watch or whatever. And we had a pleasant dinner. And I wasn't already ticked off, and he was all smiles and said, Mom, this is a great dinner. And then it happened again the next night, that I called up and suddenly he was there. And it happened again last night too. And I just heaped on the praise and said, you know what, it means so much to me when you come downstairs when I call you. Thank you so much for coming down. And then he said, it's so nice that you cook my dinner. I mean, can we all break into tears? It's a Hallmark moment, right?
Yeah.
But for months, I've been doing the dance where I just yelled upstairs and said, why can't you come downstairs while I call you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there's millions out there that know that nagging does not work.
I need to have that tattooed on my forehead, because somewhere in my soul I'm convinced that it does work. Clearly, because I keep doing it. What's the function of that behavior? Why do I keep doing that? I guess I need to look at what's my paycheck for nagging. I honestly, I'm going to have to spend some time on that. But the other works much better, and everybody's much more pleasant. I'm more pleasant, he's more pleasant, and the evening is more pleasant. And it takes less work for me to give him a 5-minute countdown and to praise him than to do what I was doing before.
Yeah. Yeah, and now you're actually effectively competing with the other stuff that's going on for him. So for him, prior to you doing that, playing the computer for another 3 minutes is way more preferable to like having to come down and deal with the like right?
Because he can tune that out. He's good at that. He can dial that right down.
Yeah, so you have to compete with that. So so now that you're giving him the warning, you've changed the antecedents, which is really good, and you've kind of primed him to be able to be successful. And now you're giving him praise, and you're providing these positive consequences for coming down that are competing with him staying up there and having to deal with the yeah.
Now, I know from previously, my difficulty will be at this point will be that I need to continue to praise, but I can dial it back, but not cold turkey it.
Yes.
Because that's what I'll want to do. I'm like, oh, we got that taken care of. I'm off to this, and just stop giving that praise altogether, which will not maintain this.
No, it won't. What we know is that you need to gradually fade that reward or reinforcement out rather than just stopping. So one of the problems is it does feel, a lot of the time I think it feels for parents either, well, I know they know how to do it, they should just do it. Okay?
Yes.
And now I've got them to do it, they should just keep doing it.
Right.
I shouldn't have to like provide all these unnatural feeling like over the top consequences. And maybe that's true, but it's not going to help you. Like, we know that you will have to put in place consequences and get the child doing what you want them to do continuously. And once they're doing it very continuously, so he's come down to dinner for whatever, a week at that time, then you might want to think about moving from either being over the top all the time to like every other time, or just like you said, moving from saying you can have 20 minutes of this TV program later to just 10 minutes to just praise, and kind of mixing it up a little bit. And that's going to result in a much more sustained level of the behavior
of happiness.
And he's not going to just be like, oh, I'm not getting anything anymore, well, I'm not going to bother come down anymore.
Right, because we don't want that to happen.
You want to get him to be a gambler. That's what I said. You're trying to turn somebody into a gambler where they just keep putting their money in, and because maybe they're going to get the right consequences. So we want kids to be doing that.
Okay. Well, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to come back and look at a question that somebody wrote in over the night. And I do have to say that when we were talking about early intervention earlier in the show about why it's so important that we not wait. Nobody ever waits. If your gut is saying, I think I need to get something for my child, doesn't matter that the first 5 people you took your child to said, oh, no, wait, we're not listening to that, right? Another parent wrote in and said, yep, 6 months here too, because I said it took me 6 months to act on it, that I waited. And they wrote, yep, 6 months here too. Early intervention is so important. The guilt never ends. No matter how many accomplishments he feels, I still have guilt. I think all of us parents, we wear that. So I was making the plea earlier, if you're watching and you're thinking about waiting, all of us who've been down this path before want to encourage you to do yourself and your child a favor. Don't wait. You don't actually have to have a diagnosis to start to get your child caught up on the skills that they're missing. But if you need help with funding to access services, you might want to consider going and getting that diagnosis. But we don't wait for anything or anyone. If your child's behind, we get on it as soon as possible. We're going to come back and talk about potty training, a question that came in during the night, so stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity of
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have it with us in the studio right now, BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst Evelyn Gould. And we haven't had the joy of having her with us in the studio for a while, so we're thrilled that she's here with us today for this special occasion. Wanted to address a question that somebody had written in through the night on the live feature. Help, my son has autism and is 7 years old. He has been daytime potty trained and self-initiates for 2.5 years. Awesome. Isn't that great? Mm-hmm. So we thought we could start nighttime training. He doesn't get liquids after 6:30. He has a set bedtime and wake-up time, is prompted to use the bathroom before bed around 9:15, but 9 out of 10 nights has accidents. We have a sticker chart and a highly reinforcing edible for dry mornings. It seems that he is having accidents very early in the night because some mornings he is dry, but I can see a urine stain on the pad and smell it. Should I wake him at around 10 or 11 and have him use the bathroom? I really don't want to put him back in pull-ups. What else can I do? I'm very discouraged. Thank you. And I'm going to start by saying, first of all, how great everything that you've put in place up to this point is. And I can understand your frustration about, I'm doing it all right, so what do I do now? And I really appreciate that. And what I had said to Evelyn Gould, you know, I am not an expert, but I'm a parent. And I said, what I'd like to do is say what I would do and then have her comment on that, because so often as parents, we're on our own. And when we have access to a BCBA, you know, we want to get input. So what I had said that I would do in this case, because the facts that you know are that the child is, you know, it feels like to you that it's happening really early at the night. Now, if you had said to me that it seems like it's happening at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, I would have a different thing with this. And I'm somebody who doesn't like to take data, except that sometimes it saves your keister. So what I would do on this is, for 1 week before you start doing something different, is just take data, and since it's early enough in the evening that you think it's happening, that set yourself a timer for yourself on a watch or your phone or whatever, and every 15 minutes or 20 minutes go up and take data about, have they already wet the bed? Mm-hmm. So that you start to narrow it down. If you think it's happening, you know, do it across a week. And if you think it's happening between 9 and 10, you can hone it down. Maybe you'll see that it's happening like between 9 and 9:30. Mm-hmm. And then when you get a real sense of here is how and when it's happening, then set your timer for 10 minutes before that and go up and wake the child up and very gently, you know, even if you have to, like I sleepwalk my child places sometimes if he's asleep, into the bathroom to use the bathroom, give them, you know, quiet reinforcement so that you're not waking them up too much after it's done, and give the reinforcement in the morning to see if that will fix it. That would be sort of my thing, but, you know, setting yourself up for success so that you're not having to intervene and not catch it at the right time, setting the child up for success before you go to bigger things, because I know that there are bigger interventions that you could do around this, but because she already knows that it looks like it's between 9 and 10 and you're probably still awake then, I'm encouraged.
Yeah.
So grade me on my response.
I think it's a great response. And I think that as well, like you said, everything that this parent is doing is great. Like the set bedtime and the set wake time are really important, and restricting liquids after a certain time also really important. I think that you're right. First of all, I would start trying to figure out when the accident's likely to happen, and if it is happening around the same time every night, that's really helpful. That's really useful, because if it was happening randomly at all different times, then it would be more, we might have to think about something more complicated. And then also to think about, is the goal to, do you need your child to sleep the entire way through the night without wetting the bed, or is it realistic and easier just to have us figure out how we can get him to get up once a night to go to the bathroom, because a lot of people can get up at least once a night to go to the bathroom. And if you're deciding to try, and you can get kids to sleep the whole way through and be dry, but you're going to be faced with a much more laborious, potentially difficult intervention that involves a lot of lost sleep on behalf of everybody.
Yeah.
Just like when you potty train during the day, that's no mean feat. I mean, that's no easy thing to do. We all, any of us who've gone through potty training with a kid who hasn't just, you know, taken to it themselves, will know that you have to be very strict about taking kids on a schedule and feeding the schedule out and reinforcing, going to the toilet, and all these things go in place. And it's it can be really a difficult process. And it's the same if you're going to want to do the same for a kid to sleep through the whole night.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I would suggest is something like what you said: figure out when the accident's happening, and then you can think about prompting your ways, how you're going to go about getting your child to get up prior to them having an accident. Obviously, you can just go in and wake your child up, but then your child is going to be dependent on you to wake them up every night to go to the bathroom. And so our goal would obviously be that we wouldn't have to get up and get them up, that they would get up themselves. And so there's different ways to figure that part out. Other people might suggest using, you can get like little devices that buzz and get children to get up or make them aware whenever they're going to wet the bed.
Okay.
Some people have used those. I haven't used those. Other strategies, depending on the child, and I don't know this child, so I don't know what is going to be most effective, but you can do things like, I have used alarm clocks, like certain different types of alarms that I've taught the child to respond to, and then you're going to have to prompt them what to do, like get up, go down to the bathroom, go through the bathroom process, and then the goal is obviously to fade yourself out of that process so the child can do it themselves.
And one example that I always like to refer to, a really good friend of the show, a mom that we've had before on the show, talked about how frustrated they were that they couldn't get the nighttime potty situation under control, and that she was at her wit's end getting up and changing the sheets, and it's just, it wears at you because then your sleep is ruined, and it's just horrifying, right? And she said, I was at the point where I honestly didn't know what to do, and in frustration she said to her child finally one night, why can't you just get up and go to the bathroom? And he said to her, I'm allowed to get up. I thought the rule was that I can't get up out of bed at night, that I go to bed and I can't get up out of bed, because that had been the rule for so long. You're in bed, you don't get up out of bed, when there were the pull-ups. And it never occurred to her that he didn't feel like he was empowered to get up. And, you know, I remember her telling that story in a room full of autism parents, and we all went, oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I think, you know, talking about consequences and functions of behavior and why kids do stuff, that is why it's important to take the data and to figure out, well, what is the problem? Is the problem that my kid doesn't, for example, doesn't think they can get out of bed? Is the problem that my kid is sleeping so deeply that they are not noticing? Or are they kind of waking up and noticing but don't care? Or you know, what is the issue?
Or for some kids, if they wet the bed, then mom doesn't want to change the sheets, so at that point they get to come in mom and dad's bed.
Right. So there can be a number of different things going on, and then your strategy is going to depend on what those things are. If your kid is really, really deep sleeper, then it can be more difficult to do something like I was suggesting, where you might have an alarm or something like that, which wakes the kid up, or some way of waking the kid up can be more problematic. But it can still work if you're consistent about the time that you're waking the child up. Then their body can kind of get into a routine of always waking at that time, and it can be successful. But you do really need to figure out like what's going on before you jump in and start changing a bunch of stuff. And this parent that we're talking about, she's already done a bunch of good things.
Yes. But now you just got to bring it home, and I understand your frustration about why it's like, I did all these good things, why is it not working yet? But sometimes it's that missing component. Well, I think this is all great. And, do us a favor and write back to us and let us know what you end up doing and how it works. We always love to keep tabs and find out how things turn out. So let us know what ends up working for you. We have to say goodbye because we're at the end of the show, but I thank you so much for being here, and I hope we can have you back again soon because we've missed having you on the show. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Staying on the show.
Well, good. We'll work that out, especially in the new year. So we're going to pause, show you this message, and then we'll be back to finish out the show. Stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. 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 Let's get wild.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to What's Left. We're enjoying some wine. We're going to make some fake bourbon chicken tonight, but we're not using bourbon. It's not gluten-free. So what we're doing, and Kristen, you're doing a great job at pounding and getting out all of your energy on that chicken, so go take it out.
I know. You know, how many of us moms are at a park or we're at a grocery store and somebody walks up to you and, your child's having a meltdown and, having not one of those fun days. This is a great thing to come home to. You would come home and really pound that chicken and you would feel so much better. Basically, it kills two birds with one stone.
You're making a great meal for your family.
Yes, and you're feeling great.
You're feeling better about that jerk who said, why can't you get your kid under control?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all your pounded, aggressive chicken and start to saute it in the skillet. And I'm just going to add a little bit of my grapeseed oil. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this in. We love the way we're going to just try to brown this up and cook it a little bit. Just a little bit of salt and pepper on top. And we're just going to go ahead and brown this. Great, Kristen. Great job. I think we're almost all brown here, so I'm going to get your help over at the cutting board if you don't mind.
The cutting station.
The cutting station. We're going to cut this in about a third slices. You go chop it up. Okay. I'm going to start on the sauce.
Okay.
We're going to take the orange juice, water, and add that in. And I'm going to measure out the fake soy sauce, a third cup. Add that in. Take in your ketchup and your brown sugar and go ahead and put that in. So in here is the red pepper flakes and ginger. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. So in the red pepper flakes, if you've got a kid that's really sensitive and doesn't like to bring a lot of heat to the kitchen, you can definitely omit that. That's not a problem. And then my favorite, as much garlic as tolerated. And the last thing that we're going to do, and as we get this heated up on the skillet, is we're going to pull this in, thicken to the sauce, and add in the arrowroot to thicken it. So we're going to go back to the frying pan. Woohoo! And put in our sauce, and we're going to bring it to a boil, and that's when I'm going to add the arrowroot. What arrowroot does for everything, like when we're baking with gluten-free flours, this adds kind of the oomph to hold it together. Arrowroot is also a great sauce thickener. So let's go in and add the chicken. Thank you again for helping get this all together. I made extra sauce because I'm a saucy girl. So we made a really nice meal here tonight. We're talking just the right flavors, right texture. So I'm going to serve you up to what we're going to have for dinner, if that sounds good to you. Yes! So
I always love coming
over. So what we made over here is just really some, what I call my dirty rice, and it's just some of the really nice different spices. I use a little red pepper flakes in that as well, beaumont, parsley, and just salt and pepper. It's really simple. And some of my favorite, which is zucchini sauteed. So I'm going to just go ahead and serve you up, and you can get to be my guinea pig once again.
I will always be a good guinea pig anytime you cook.
Bon appetit, my friend.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us at Autism Live. Kristen, I had fun with you today.
I always have fun. Thank you.
It is. It's great. And we had fun with you, too. And if you have questions or want to see us cook some more different dinners, just email us. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com or go to Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. Or Taka Now. Taka's got tons of recipes, over 2,000 recipes ready for you to come and explore and have some fun. And thanks to Holly for this great bourbon-free bourbon chicken. And we'll see you next time on What's Love? Bye, guys.
You say hi, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Before we go to the close of the show, I do want to say that as we were saying goodbye to Evelyn Gould, she wanted me to come back and stress that one part that we left out of the conversation was how important it is to be reinforcing the child in some way for this process of getting up in the middle of the night and using the toilet. And that I had made the point that, you know, you don't want it to be so loud and rambunctious, whatever the reinforcement is, that you wake them up. And so depending on, you know, where you are in building the skill, you know, you could use a token system that if they get up in the middle of the night and successfully go, they get, you know, the sticker on the piece of paper, which translates to the actual, you know, whatever the reinforcer is in the morning. And Evelyn was talking about the necessity that very slowly that you're going to over time want to fade whatever the reinforcement is, but that it's absolutely essential component. You won't have a child want to continue. You've got this highly preferred, I'm snuzzy, I'm warm, I'm sleeping, I'm resting, I'm dreaming, and getting up and going through this process unless there's a reinforcement. And of course, that was our word for the day, so we don't want to leave that part out. So important that we find the proper reinforcement. It's going to depend on the child and the circumstances and the time of the night and, you know, so on and so forth. But the proper reinforcement for the child, there's got to be some kind of positive reinforcement for getting up in the night, and then slowly over time fading that reinforcement, because you're not going to spend the rest of their life giving them reinforcement. So for getting up in the middle of the night, but eventually they will just be able to do that, but it might take a while. Until then, we need to be reinforcing an important component. We didn't want to leave that out. And thank you very much to Evelyn Gould for reminding us about that. All right, we are at the end of the show. A couple of things that I want to talk about. Don't forget, the holiday giveaway extravaganza continues tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to be here with Dr. Adele Nadowski. She's going to be talking about how we create a behavior intervention plan that has a consequence strategy that's going to fit that function of the behavior, and how you can use the behavior intervention plan builder to be able to make sure that it is something that's going to be effective no matter what the circumstance is, no matter what the function of the behavior is. And then we're going to be here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and he's going to be talking with us about some of the research behind consequence strategies. And if you've been wondering why is it more effective, that positive reinforcement, than that punishment we're talking about, I'm sure that's a topic that we're going to discuss with him. And we also had a question that came in this week about potty training for kids who are nonverbal, not in the middle of the night, but just potty training. So I'm not sure which one of them. I think Dr. Tarbox is going to address that with us. So all of that and much more, and the giveaway tomorrow. Excited to be back with you at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Do the math wherever you are in the world, and keep watching us on Facebook. I will be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.